Okay, so 2024 was a pretty damn good year for my gaming experiences, and I wanted to try a newish kind of video to talk about it. Surprisingly, I played a lot of games for the first time this year. We have 17 new game experiences, in fact. Now, before I go over my rules for this, I did want to say that I felt a little inspired by a YouTuber named Voyan to make this video. I know nobody owns the concepts of game rankings, but it's his end of year rankings that made me want to do this video, so you should check out his stuff. His videos are pretty fucking magical, and I highly recommend you watch them all. He also low-key could pass off as twins, so that's kind of crazy. Anyways, my rules for this ranking will go like this. This is for games that I only played in 2024 and were new experiences for me, so nothing that I revisited like Bayonetta 1 or 2. It does not matter what year they came out, just as long as I had played it within the time frame of January 1st to December 1st. Additionally, things like demos, betas, and DLC will apply here as new experiences, so even if it's not necessarily a full game I played, as long as I played something that was new, it counts. Also, things like sequels or yearly releases will also count, even if I played the previous installment, so things like Madden or Call of Duty would also count. Anyways, without further ado, here's every game I played from worst to best in the year 2024. Starting us off, the worst game I played in 2024 was... The worst game I played in 2024 was Concord. This game's story is all too familiar now, but for the sake of things, I'll go over it briefly. On May 30th, 2024, Sony hosted their State of Play presentation to highlight some new releases coming out for the remainder of the year. The opening game featured was that of Firewalk Studios, one of Sony's newest acquisitions, and their first title period, actually. The game was revealed and absolutely nobody cared. It was this weird sci-fi first-person hero shooter that was just straight up ugly. It had these bland, boring character designs and personalities. There was just nothing going for it. This game is the product of one Ryan Ellis, a guy who had worked on Destiny 2 prior to this. This was his baby, and he envisioned it to be the next Star Wars, and Sony wanted it to become that too, so badly in fact, that they were willing to spend a rumored but probably likely $400 million on the game. The game was reportedly in development for 8 whole years, only to be shut down 2 weeks later after release due to unbelievably low sale numbers and player count. One person that did care about it was Ryan Ellis, so much so that he allegedly, though probably believably, created a toxic positivity work environment that nobody could speak bad of the game in, and ultimately stepped down as CEO of Firewalk Studios prior to the studio being shut down by Sony. That was the basic story of the game's launch, but one thing I left out was that there was a beta in July of 2024, which is where I come in. My beautiful friend Kacper, who you guys may know as the man behind the gorgeous thumbnails on the channel, wanted to try out the beta since both of us have PS5s and have probably played about 2 games together on it. So he wanted this fun experience with a friend, and we decided to hop on, and it was probably the most it's their game I've ever played. He'll be back for the next few entries on this list for the same reason, and I think we may need to reassess playing free-to-play games together. The genre of games that everyone is making, these blah blah looter shooter slop titles, are just not interesting. It's not even necessarily that the game itself was bad, it controlled fine, but it's just a steak with no seasoning. It's an expensive thing of nothing. And the game was just doomed from the start due to the story that I had mentioned earlier. Absolutely nobody cared about the game, and Sony's expectation that we would just killed any shot that it had. Even watching the gameplay that I couldn't even get due to how quick the game shut down, it's very clear that it's just boring. Again, it wasn't necessarily a buggy mess or anything like that, it was just so bland. There was nothing that separated it from every other free-to-play shooter. It design-wise was ugly, nothing stood out beyond a realization that the game was quickly going to fail. So Concord takes the place for the worst game of the year that I played. But what about the worst game I played of the year? That was the best transition I could come up with. It make no fucking sense. Okay, so this isn't about Valorant as a game. I actually quite enjoy Valorant, even though it pisses me off. I got back into Valorant this year due to everyone in my friend group gaining an interest in it again, and FOMO encouraged me to install it. Whole 9 yards. I had a pretty good time with it. It was the game I played the most this year for sure, and I'm still playing it now to this day. So this isn't about Valorant, the PC game. This is about Valorant's console version. I mentioned at the start of this video that if it was a new experience, I'd count it. And technically this was a new experience as it was a console version, so I wouldn't say this is cheating. It's my fucking list. What are you gonna do? Good old friend Kacper returns for this entry, though this one actually had some merit back then. Valorant on PC, as enjoyable as it is, has a matchmaking skill problem. Despite my friend not playing the game for a few years, because of his peak rank back in the day, he's kinda locked into playing with other players of that skill level, regardless of the time that he's been away. And it would be unjust to make him play on a whole separate account as he has hundreds of dollars worth of skins put into the game from his heyday, so beyond squad fills on unrated with our friends, there wasn't really much we could do. This was all until Valorant on console released, and we had hoped that this was going to be the alternative and solution to our issue, and it was. It just wasn't that fun to play. I think the PC and console versions are two entirely different experiences, and Valorant on console just does not work. The game was very clearly made for a computer and the transition to console just doesn't hit. I grew up playing shooter games on a console, so I'm naturally better with a controller, but Valorant, while it tries its best to fit on a console, was just meant to be played with a keyboard and a mouse. There's too many commands to fit into a controller, and that's pretty much all this entry boils down to. The game itself is not bad, I enjoy Valorant just fine. Its control on a console and overall adaptation is what makes it a bad time, and whenever he does hop on with the rest of the group, we just keep playing it unrated with the full party. Speaking of a bad time though, the bad time in question is the finals. My lovely friend Kacper is back for this one, his last appearance, unfortunately. Basically the exact same story as Concord and Valorant prior, free to play, and he wanted me to try it. I said sure, I walked away from it not remembering anything. Much like Concord, it was a blah looter shooter slop title. If you played one, you've played them all really. Nothing about it was of note, everything was just kind of there and offered nothing unique. It also apparently uses AI too, so that kind of says everything you need to know about it. Let's talk about some sports. I suppose I'm just getting all the bland titles out of the way, but NBA 2K14, yeah, okay, fucking gramps. NBA 2K24 is 14th on this list. You see, the thing is I love basketball. I watch the NBA every year, teams the Thunder if you were wondering. Watch college ball, UCLA there. I've been to multiple NBA games, played basketball pretty often before I got a job and lost all my free time. I even do love some sports betting every once in a while, every single weekend, So when you get to the games, you'd figure that I'd also greatly enjoy them. After all, I love Madden, the basic bitch that I am, so an NBA game should in theory be a match made in heaven for me. In theory. I don't know what it is about 2K, I just cannot seem to understand it. I've given a good try with these games and I just don't think I like them is the honest truth. I know there's lots of people that enjoy them and that's good for them, but I just think I established that I 1, can't be good at this game, and 2, that I can't understand how to play the game. It also doesn't help that this game, much like other sports titles, are largely the same as the ones that you played previously and don't do much to change up things beyond a draft class and roster switch ups that year. I will say that I prefer football as a sport over all the basketball, so perhaps that plays a role in this too, but it just isn't it. They're also pretty unpolished, favoring graphics that, being honest, don't look too great over performance. And EA themselves got away with this for a lot of people too this year with College Football 25. I promise that there's like one more sports title on the list. This game was requested for such a long time by lifelong college football fans. The last game in the series, NCAA 14, came out in 2013, 11 whole years ago. I was not one of the people who played that game, as I hadn't really played any other sports game that wasn't a Mario one during this time. As I got older, however, I got brain rotted into the EA system and got into Madden, as well as get into college football period, Florida Gators and whatnot. Madden is one of those funny things, spoilers, it's on the list later, where I know it's bad, but it's so addicting I cannot not play the game. I can get very sucked into Madden, usually around 100 plus hours addicted. So when they announced NCAA, I was very excited to play a football game that was, well, good. And I don't think this game is fucking good. I do want to preface this by saying I got this game right when I got the C-word virus as a means to make myself feel better, when in action it only really made me feel worse. I got incredibly sick and I really was just hating my fucking life, so I do want you to take that into consideration, but at the same time it kind of doesn't really change my thoughts. This game's kind of shit. The game absolutely has a 10 on it because it's a return to college football and they put a bit more effort into this than Madden, that there could be no wrong with it when that's actually the opposite. The throwing mechanic is absolutely it's just rank, it's shit. There should not be fighting game combos to throw a deep ball. It tries to do too much, and no matter what setting you put the throwing on, it genuinely just does not solve the issue. The computers just have no idea if they want to be football players or car salesmen, just like they do in real life. But probably most disappointing of all were the game modes. Road to Glory was solid, but I can't say the same for Dynasty and Road to the College Playoffs in that you really can't play them offline, instead having to face other players online only. I would have liked it much more if both of those were combined, as they pretty much feel exactly the same, while also having an option for an offline mode or something along the lines of a franchise mode in Madden, which is what I play a majority of the time. One more thing of note, while this isn't necessarily anything that they can control due to this just being how actual college works in real life, but you really only have 4 years with the players on your roster, so by the time you can get anything going, it's already custom generated players, and winning championships only goes so far every year. It loses its replay value very quickly, and I think that while this could be a good step in the future for future college football games, overall it's just some very disappointing potential. Everything from here on out I enjoyed and have an overall positive experience with, so I'd like to talk about Tekken 8. So Tekken is a franchise I haven't dived too deep into. I vividly remember playing Tekken 6 story mode on the PS3 way back in the day, and outside of a few games of 7, I haven't really played much since then. One thing I did do though was watch Tekken at EVO pretty much every year. While I've largely fallen out of watching esports, Tekken at EVO is something I always tune into. The energy and skill is honestly unmatched, and it's a whole different experience. At the same time, Tekken is a game I just do not understand. I love fighting games, as I've mentioned previously on the channel, love playing them, everything like that. But Tekken is just a game that I've never really been able to focus in on, and that's perfectly okay. So when the beta came out, I tried it, and I came to the same conclusion that I'm just not too good at Tekken specifically, but I adore watching it. So this is a very low ranking since I only played for that whole day, but Tekken is still pretty cool in my books. It's just, I'm just not it at that game. I'm not that good. Now, I, like most people who are watching this video, I assume, owned a Wii U, and I personally love the Wii U myself. It had a lot of wonderful gaming experiences that I cherish to this day, one of which being the NES Remix games. If you're a longtime viewer of the channel, you'll know that in addition to RPGs, I'm not a fan of retro games either in most cases, but the NES Remix games were able to put a fun spin on these retro games with challenges, and it caused for a lot of fun times trying to get 3 stars. So when Nintendo revealed the Nintendo World Championship NES Edition, I was stoked. I had been wishing for the NES Remix games to come to Switch, and this, while being a little different, was close enough to those experiences. The game was pre-ordered and it arrived launch day in that beautiful special edition, and I played a whole hour of it and haven't touched it since. It did do enough to fill my NES Remix desires for the most part, but unfortunately when the game came out, that was around the same time that I had the virus, and thus I wasn't in the mood to play any game longer than an hour, as I was basically fighting for my fucking life. But still, it was a good time. It just wasn't one that I've really synced much into since launch. Final sports game on the list, everybody. We have done it. Good fucking job. Good work, folks. So I love the NFL. My team is the Panthers, and I sadly also love Madden as well. Madden is like fast food. It's really not good for you, but it's good to you. Since I already basically talked about the game, I can speed this one up. Simply put, I enjoyed it a lot more than NCAA. The throwing mechanics actually make sense. Ultimate Team and franchise mode are fun. Same game, same problems every other year. I just always seem to look past the problems. Let's talk about some Mario Party. Back at E3 2018, Nintendo showed off a trailer for a familiar franchise, Mario Party. The series has been on a low point since 2012 with Mario Party 9 and the car mechanic, though the minigames are absolutely gas in that game. The following year, 2013, housing Island Tour on the 3DS, where people just thought it was a mixed to average title. 2015 giving us Mario Party 10, which did the same thing as 9 but worse and with less content. Star Rush in 2016, that while removed the car mechanic, also took away the turn-based format, something the series was built off of. Then in 2017 with the top 100, it was just minigames. That was basically it. So this trailer in 2018 felt refreshing in a sense. It was like catching up with an old friend. The game as a whole was a step in the right direction as well. It removed the car mechanic entirely and reverted back to the boards and turn-based formatting. It visually was a treat to the eye, and the minigames did a good job at integrating the new Joy-Con controllers, though I did say it was a step in the right direction. The game had no content to it, only 40 boards and 80 mini-games, which caused players to get tired pretty quick. Add on top of that, the boards themselves are incredibly bland with no layers to them. It just wasn't enough to change the series back to its glory days, but it was a step in the right direction. 2021 aimed to fix this with Mario Party Superstars. It remastered 5 of the courses from the first 3 games, as well as brought back games from every mainline entry in the franchise, as well as introduced online functionality into the game. In doing this though, they also lacked in content, only offering 1 more board than the previous, and the lack of side content games like 2 and 3 had. This was hopefully to change in 2024 with the release of Super Mario Party Jamboree, and I'd say that they did a pretty good job with it, so much so to be ranked 9th on our list. For starters, the boards are plentiful and fun to play, with 7 of them included, 5 of which being new and 2 being remasters from previous titles. This is a pretty solid amount for a base game, and at that, the boards are fun and in-depth. Specifically, Rainbow Galleria was my favorite. This game's new mechanic is called Jamboree Buddies, and all it really is a chance to grab a CPU that can give you advantages such as double coins or being able to get 2 stars, etc. It's a decent addition, and seeing which buddy will be in your game is always a treat. Then, the mini games, as per usual, are a lot of fun with over 110 of them to choose from. But unlike the previous 2 games, this one also has pretty decent side content. Online play returns from the last 2, but in addition to it is the Koopathon. Instead of collecting stars, your goal is to stay in first place as you lap around a map. This mode can be played against 19 other people online, or as CPUs, or 7 friends if you got that. Also with this is Bowser's Kaboom Squad, a side mode where you aim to take Bowser down, also with the option of playing with 7 people online or as CPUs. So if I'm appearing to be a fan of this game, why isn't it ranked much higher? Pikmin. Not the last time we'll be seeing Pikmin on this list, but Pikmin had always been a series that I had wanted to get into, and this year was finally the time that I did. I played Pikmin 1 and Pikmin 2 in the Pikmin 1+2 collection, but since they're in the same package, I guess I'll include both of them as one entry. It's my list, my bad. These games were the start of my Pikmin journey, and I think I made the right choice. Pikmin as a game is such a special concept and very easy to get sucked into. With the first game's length and locations, it makes wanting to play it over and over again addictive, aiming to surpass your previous run's day count and trying to manage how to collect as much in that 15-minute day as possible. What makes 2 appealing in the package is the difficulty and new Pikmin types being used to collect items to pay off the debt. This feels rewarding with each and every treasure you collect. The reason for this not ranking higher boils down to the issues I have with the games. For one, it's the clunkiness of the Pikmin. Oftentimes you'll get strayed Pikmin that, if not incredibly careful, will cause you to lose upwards of your entire Pikmin squad at one moment. I suppose it can also make the game more strategic, but when there's a Pikmin death that feels completely out of your hands, it does make you feel frustrated. As for 2, I have 2 main issues. First, there's no day limit like the first game. You can have a run of 70 days if you really felt like it, which causes there to be no urgency to be strategic. Additionally, the locations kinda suck, specifically the caves. They just aren't enjoyable to run through and oftentimes were the drag of the game for me. I do already have a video on the first game and will eventually make one on the second game, so my full thoughts for both of those, if you haven't seen them, will be in those 2 videos. But regardless, Pikmin is just an overall fantastic franchise. If you watched my top 10 favorite games of all time video, you'll remember Black Ops 3 being on that list, but also that I had hoped for Black Ops 6 to be somewhat as good as Black Ops 3, and it absolutely delivered. 7th feels like such a low ranking for this game given how much I enjoyed both the beta and have been enjoying the full game, but I guess it just shows you how good of a year I had with games. Anyways, this game definitely got me back into the fold I had long missed. It's mostly the same fun Call of Duty I played as a kid, just with me being older now and a few changes. First, I'll go over what I liked. The gameplay is still the same fun as I remember it being. Camo hunting has been a joy and really keeps me engaged with the game, wanting to constantly check how much progress I'm making on them. The prestige returning to the days of old, aka the days that I played in, was a treat to find out, and likewise has been a blast looking at what I'm unlocking each game. I heard they removed this for a few titles, which I'm unsure of why, but I'm happy it's back nonetheless. Overall, the package is still just as fun as I had left off on with Black Ops 3, so I'm very easy to please in this category. The game's not entirely perfect, however. While camo hunting has been fun, in the same breath, the 99% of the camos are pretty fucking ugly in this game. I guess it makes going for dark matter more rewarding, but I wish there were just better skin options. I'm not too fan of the designs on them. The maps aren't too terrible, but they do draw a line of mid that I haven't seen in any other Call of Duty I've ever played. With those, I had a few standout maps, but in this game, nothing really draws the line of must play. An issue with them for me is that they never have consistent map sizes. It's either too big to where you're running around for tens of seconds before finding someone else, or they're so small that as soon as you spawn in, you die. However, despite the few bad things that I had mentioned, the game has been played daily since launch, so they must not matter much to me. As I mentioned at the start, DLC expansions will also count for this, and Splatoon 3's side order is definitely no exception. I made a video on side order already, but it wasn't exactly a review, it was just more of if the expansion was worth the wait, so this will be my mini review. Side order was an addictive blast to play through. I never had any experiences with the roguelike game before, so combining elements of that into Splatoon, a game I've been playing for the last decade of my life, it made for a very unique but fun combination. The main fun comes from replaying it after beating it the first time. It's there that you really become better and get to experiment not just with different weapon combinations, but different chipsets as well. It feels very rewarding when you get better because you're able to progress through the 30 levels in the tower much quicker, but becomes equally as tense as even when you feel like you've mastered it down, knowing the entire map layout and enemy movements, there will always be a moment where you get humbled and die. Going for a full chipset is a little luck based, but that's the only thing holding it back. Side order's gameplay is so addictive that it doesn't even feel repetitive. If anything, it makes you want to master the layouts of the maps and enemies more and more. And on top of that, the music specifically in this expansion was phenomenal. 3's music really hits for the story modes featured in the game, and potentially might be the best of the 3 games story mode OSTs. The only thing holding it back from ranking it higher is that it's a DLC expansion, not a full game, so these next 5 titles are all going to be full experiences. So I was one of the unfortunate souls that bought a PS5, and I was initially pretty disappointed with it. I had bought mine in November of 2023 when the PS5 Slim had launched, and fun little fact, this was my first ever big boy purchase that I made when I got a job. A year prior, my dad bought the base PS5, and over the past year we had been getting some games for it that in theory was going to make my PS5 purchase worth it. I had titles like Gran Turismo 7, Street Fighter 6, in addition to my entire PS4 collection to play. It should have been a wonderful time, and yet it just wasn't. I didn't get any use out of this thing for the first 3 months. I just didn't play anything because there was nothing to play. I'd gotten my time with Gran Turismo on the first PS5, and Street Fighter, while I had just had other online online games I preferred to play at the time. There wasn't any exclusives or incentives to play PS5. 2024, however, made it worthwhile. I had already mentioned Madden and Black Ops 6 earlier, but there's some more titles that will take the next 5 spots on this list that really made my purchase worth it for me. First of these titles is Astro Bot. Astro Bot really changed the landscape for PlayStation through its creative level design, beautiful graphics, lovable iconic characters, among other things. The title was also revealed in that same state of play as Concord, and it's no surprise that Astro Bot was the most talked about game in that presentation. The music is pretty damn good as well as the visuals, and as I had mentioned before, the Astro Bot is just such a lovable character and a great mascot. However, there is one thing in specific that absolutely blew me away with the game, and it was the controller interactivity. In my entire lifetime, I've never played a game this advanced and that does as good of a job of integrating its controllers into the gameplay as Astro Bot. The rumble, the triggers, the noises it makes, you can shake your controller and it will shake the little collectible bots in the controller in the game. I can go on with examples. The game truly doesn't really have any flaws. It feels so carefully designed and crafted to perfection, so the only question is why it's ranked at 5 and not higher. I just haven't beat it yet, I'm sorry. Okay, so I've already talked about Silent Hill 2, the original game, in a separate video, but this year marked the release of the Silent Hill 2 remake, so even though I played both for the first time this year, I wanted to use this slot to talk specifically about the remake. I absolutely loved this remake. I was one of the people who were initially skeptical of Bloober Team and giving them something as sacred as the Silent Hill franchise, let alone one a majority of people enjoy the most, but they nailed it. The visuals are amazing, the environments really feel isolated and eerie, as well as the models. The game had a lot of controversy around it with its models, but I think they all look really good and add into what Silent Hill the town should give off. The combat was also really good, even though I got angry at it a lot. Fighting the common enemies wasn't really my thing. I felt more frustrated than excited to fight them, but the boss fights were absolutely spectacular. If there's one specifically I had to choose as my favorite, the Abstract Daddy fight was the one that blew me away the most, though Eddie's fight was also pretty damn good. My absolute top favorite thing though was that soundtrack. Akira Yamaoka and the team went ahead and recreated all of the original soundtracks, tweaking them to fit the vibe of the game. My favorite piece was by far Laura Plays the Piano. The whole song is a very emotional and powerful piece, and I've always been a sucker for pianos. A majority of my thoughts about Silent Hill 2 period are in that video I mentioned earlier, but seeing as the remake came out after that video, I wanted to give this slot to talk about it. Overall, just phenomenal remake. I absolutely loved it. Alright, listen. The two titles I just talked about are both phenomenal entries. I was completely okay with having not played another new game this entire year and having Silent Hill 2 as my third best game of the year, but then one day, I got very bored. I remember I bought a game on the eShop a few months back that was around $5 or so. The game was none other than Suika Game. It just sat on my Switch for months and I didn't play it until the end of October. Within 2 days of playing, I had already had 20 hours. To say this game has taken over my life would be an understatement. I played it before heading to work, I play it the first thing when I get off of work, I play it in bed, I play it in the living room, I play it on call with friends, I play it eating, I've even played it shitting a few times, I'll be honest with you. And the thing is I really do not know why this game has taken over my life. It's such a simple concept. You match fruits together to create a watermelon. It's like Tetris or Puyo Puyo, but with fruits. There's just something so addicting to it. Trying to make 2 watermelons and just never being able to do it. Trying to break your high score or competing with other users' high scores. I just can't seem to get enough of it. I even bought the damn themes for it, even though it does absolutely nothing beyond just give you a new background. I'm late to the Suika Game trend, but that's okay. I'm still having fun with it, and it's become my daily driver now that Splatoon 3 is done with content updates. It's my go-to game to relax while also being the push to get my brain going for a day. I love this game to death, however, I don't think I could justify putting it over 2 games. Coming in as the runner-up to the best games I played in 2024 is Pikmin 3 Deluxe. Pikmin 3 is one of those once-in-a-generation games and easily my favorite in the series. Everything about the game is polished. The environments are beautiful and vast. You have the Garden of Hope, which is this bright, grassy look, and then you switch over to the distant tundra, which is this snowy, cold environment. Then go to somewhere like Twilight River and Formidable Oak, which are these fall-like areas. It's pretty damn neat. The fruit collecting is a blast, and honestly much more fun than the treasures in the previous games. Even though it puts you in a position where you're never in danger of running out of juice, it's equally as satisfying collecting all the fruits and watching the juice meter fall and overstock you on juice. The new Pikmin types are a blast, with the rock Pikmin being good substitutes for the purples, and the winged Pikmin being entire game changers with the flying mechanic. The characters are also likable even if you're horrible, evil, disgusting. The game is just a blast, and is probably in the history of my lifetime the only game I've never got pissed at while playing, so that's definitely something. This part is a little short though, as I did make a video already on my experience with Pikmin 3 Deluxe, so I'd recommend you watch that or my video of the top 10 games of all time for more on it. That goes to show you how good Pikmin 3 is as a whole. It already is in my top 10 favorite games of all time. Like that's real emotion right there. I haven't played 4 yet, so that one will more than likely be for the 2025 version of this video, assuming everybody likes these, but I do have high hopes for it. Anyways, we have now gotten to the #1 spot. Of all the games that I played in 2024, all 17, there was one game specifically that stood out more than the rest and is going to take the spot as the best game. And that game is... If Remake was my second favorite game of all time, it wouldn't be hard to imagine that its sequel would be the highlight of my gaming for 2024. It shouldn't come as a surprise that this would be #1, especially given how I reacted to it getting revealed. Let's do the damn thing! Oh, let's go!
I need to play the Red 40.
Oh my god.
His running animation stinks.
Shut up, bro.
Yes,
Damn.
let's go!
Who's that?
Is that?
Bro, it's back!
Andrew
Let's
Tate?
do the damn thing! That is not Andrew Tate, shut the fuck up. That is not Andrew Tate. That... Oh!
This game had me glued in from start to finish. Everything about the two games has been a joy, but I look at them more like bonuses. Real enjoyment of it for me has always been the story. They've really put drugs in this damn story. It has me glued in like no other game I've ever played and unable to put my controller down. I was definitely willing to call into work multiple times when I played it. It was that damn good. The connections the characters have with one another and how they're written and animated really get the player immersed in the world. Even smaller things like the NPC interactions or appearances from characters previous like Leslie are welcome moments during the playthrough. Then when you add on to that literally everything else about the game, it makes it that much more sweeter. The combat is still just as fun as the first game, with the majority of things remaining the same. New to this game is the Synergy team-ups. There are these cutscenes that play with two party members and unleash a massive attack on the enemies hit with it. It's a great visual for fans and just overall a cool moment every time you see the cutscene. The side quests were all mostly enjoyable, though for the purpose of the dates and the relationship building, I only did Tifa's my playthrough. The dialogue in them really helps ease in the relationship mechanic new to this game as well. The game starts you off neutral with everyone, and slowly building up that relationship is incredibly rewarding. Again, I went for all of Tifa's as she's my favorite character in the game, and probably just one of the best characters in all of gaming history. And the Golden Saucer date was probably the most rewarding cutscene of them all. The music continued to be amazing, as well as the new mini-games that they introduced. Most of them. Glide to Chocobo was kinda dog shit, but other than that I enjoyed all of them. The frog jumping and Chocobo racing were among my favorites. However, there's one minigame that stood out above the rest. Queen's Blood. Oh my god. Queen's Blood was the most rage-inducing fun card game I didn't understand that I have ever played. Every time you get bitched by someone, it was so frustrating, but you had no other choice but to keep yourself trying until it was beat. To be honest, there were only two things I didn't enjoy, with one being smaller and the other kinda big. The smaller of the two is the skill tree. Not that the idea of it is bad, it's basically the same as the first game, rather my issue with it is the screen itself. In Remake, it was a super pleasing galaxy background with a much easier to read screen, as with Rebirth, it's this ugly plain background and a much larger unnecessary skill tree. It's a smaller thing and you don't really spend much time on it. I just miss the older screen. The bigger thing I didn't like was literally everything Chadley has you do, like finding the towers and the intel and all that shit. It's very disruptive of the gameplay and he just won't leave you alone no matter how often you try to avoid him. All that could have absolutely been removed, but it does nothing to lessen my overall experience with the game, and it is why it's my favorite game that I played of 2024. And as well as my game of the year. Thank you guys for watching the video, and if you would like to share your favorite games that you played this year, I would love to read about them down below, per usual. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.